I lost visual on Brooke.
We're live.
Right. Welcome, everyone. I'd like to welcome everyone to this working session. Thank you for attending a board meeting. We'll call this board meeting of the Nielsen County Board of Education to order May 5th, 2020 at 5:30 p.m.
No changes to the agenda at this time. So we wanted to take a few minutes, and we know this is a unique time across our community and across our community of schools. And we just wanted to provide an update on some important conversations that will be occurring across our community in the next few weeks, and really beginning this week as we finalize our timing for graduation. I think so much of this time during the last 8 weeks, we've entered a lot of first, and this graduation ceremony for our class of 2020 is certainly going to be a first as we do that through social distancing. But we want to make sure we continue to be thoughtful and that we continue to build a powerful experience for our students and families, even if it looks a little bit different. And I think that has led us to some decision making we'll be sharing with you tonight. And to begin this conversation, we want to bring our high school principals to the table and allow them to talk about some of the discussions that they've been having over the past few weeks with students about really what stands out for them and what do they want to resonate in this experience. So we will, if we go to the next slide, Miss Courtney Newton and Mr. Barry Nesbitt will be able to provide some of their conversations they've been having over the past few weeks.
All right, guys, this is Mr. Nesbitt. Does everybody hear me? I think, yep, mic is on.
Yes,
just briefly, guys, we started this conversation a couple weeks ago with our graduation advisory council, where we invited 5 seniors into our Google Meets, and we have several staff members in there as well. Just starting a conversation with them about where we're going to go with this. Obviously, it's not going to be traditional, but we just wanted to get the seniors' thoughts on what was important to them, and we asked them questions as simple as that: what's important to them? What's important to their parents, and they a couple of the big things that they brought to the table was they feel like they want to watch their kids or their family, or, I'm sorry, their friends graduate. They want to be able to walk across the stage. They want to be able to watch their friends walk across the stage. And be able to connect with the peers and have some kind of closure with their peers. That was one of the most important things that as their parents become part of the conversation as well. That they wanted to actually be able to see their child receive their diploma, walk across the stage, ability to take pictures and celebrate with them. But the students have been great. They've been honest with us. They know that this is not traditional. I think once we talked them through that, the circumstances we're in is not going to allow for a traditional graduation ceremony. I think they became on board pretty quickly and talked through some ideas with us about what you're probably going to hear tonight, and with the stipulations from the CPC and the health department. But our conversation has been great, and we're talking about doing some fall celebrations. Into next fall, maybe some things through football game recognition, some cookouts, maybe a fall dance to celebrate them. But from my point of view, my kids have been great, and we're working on a process with them. And I'm had many conversations with Courtney over the last week or two, and I think she's probably going to tell you some similar things. But all in all, the kids been great, and I think we're gonna do something pretty great. Probably not what we all worked for and guessed when we started this year, but all in all, I think the kids have been awesome.
Yep, I think I could echo Barry and saying that the students have been really amazing throughout this process. It's been really nice to hear their perspective and what they're wanting from this, but also their ability to be so adaptive and flexible has been very impressive. You know, you think about high school and you imagine it ending in a certain way, and their ending was a little different. But they've been very positive, and they've had a lot of great ideas on ways that we can kind of honor some of our traditions that we've normally done, but in a little different way. So they had some of the same takeaways that Nelson County High School did as well. And they were just excited to be a part of the process and to kind of get to share their thoughts and opinions on it. And they've been a pleasure to have discussions with about this.
I think importantly, the students really gave a sense of confidence to our team about moving in the direction that we're moving. And we'll be able to share that with you. Next up is Robin McCoy talking about some of the guidance in the state that we know we're going to have to acknowledge. Thank you, Ms. Newton and Mr. Nesbitt. And we look forward to continuing to build this over the course of the next week and month as we prepare for an awesome ceremony, even if it looks a little different. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, so those student advisory groups were super important as we decided what can we do for students, how can we celebrate them and honor the time that they have spent with us. And so them wanting to have something in person with their families was really number one on their list. And so in order to pull that off, we had to get into the guidance from KDE. We've looked at several models of different districts within the state and outside of the state to come up with the best plan that we know how to celebrate them and to also keep them safe. And so here are just six of the kind of a broad stroke of the 6 safety requirements that we must keep in mind as we plan for these events. The first one being that we will schedule individual times for families to come in and watch their son or daughter cross the stage. We have to make sure that there is no crossing paths of families. So there's an entrance and an exit strategy. We have to maintain social distancing at all times among staff, families, and students. They have to wear protective masks. And we have to do temperature checks. We just got the approval today from the health department verbally. They're still confirming our plan in written format, but today we got the approval to only do temperature checks for staff so that we do not have to do temperature checks for families and students, which is a good thing. We're not looking to do temperature checks so yay. Next, they are still reviewing this, but that we have no more than 5 immediate family members. And that's because no more than 10 people are allowed in an individual space. And so we have to leave room for a video for an administrator, as well as the student, and then their 5 immediate family members. The health department and the KDE, the Department of Ed, have recommended outside ceremonies, if at all possible, although they know that weather will restrict that. And we have to have a no-touch contact process where diplomas are not handed directly to anyone, and there is no handshakes or hugs of any kind, but really that something is sitting on a table and either the student can grab it from the table and it's marked where they go. So there's a lot more that's going into this that was submitted to the health department, but these are really just the broad strokes of what we have to work within to make sure that our community is kept safe and that we're still able to honor them and allow our families to be able to witness that. So Carla, if you will go to the next slide. This talks again, broad strokes of what these ceremonies are going to look like. So we are having individual family celebrations on Friday and Saturday of June 12th and June 13th. We're going to run them from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. And again, each graduate will get to come into the school, walk across the stage, receive their diploma as their individual family witnesses this. We'll be videoing all of it. And we'll be publishing those videos at 5:30 and 7:30 on June 20th. It's a Saturday, to be able to just highlight these events and be able to celebrate with them virtually. We're going to show the receipt of each student's diploma. So that's exciting. And well, exciting as it can be at this point. And then, as Barry and Courtney have both indicated, we do plan on doing fall celebrations and remembrances, but welcoming them home, having homecomings where whether it's a reception or a dance or a whatever it may be, a get together of some kind to welcome home these 2020 seniors and allow them to spend some time together where they missed it at the end of their senior year. So those are just those are, again, broad strokes of what the ceremonies are going to look like under those restrictions. So that's where we are as of now.
Thank you, Robin, and I'll who give input and give it a little bit more clarity as I'm sure I'm not the only one that's received questions about how we plan to handle this ceremony and how to honor our students. So step by step, we'll get there. Thank you.
Right. And Jeff, just so I reiterate, our plan, we have a really detailed plan that had to go to the health department. So it's in the health department's hands now, and they say they are going to work through it, provide notes, and give us our final stamp of approval as soon as they can. So we're waiting for those official notes.
All right, are we ready to transition to end of the year, backpack day, and summer planning?
All good.
All right, so when we talked about the revised calendar at the April board meeting, one of the things that we established was that May 18th through the 22nd would be staff backpack days to help us meet the obligations of the contracts and those sorts of things. And so as we began planning, Carl, if you go to the next slide, what those days look like, we knew that there needed to be some anchors in place across the district. So on those days, every morning at 8 o'clock, as we think about caring, connecting, and creating together as part of our NTI plan, every morning at 8 o'clock, we will kick that off with a daily wellness YouTube live. So I appreciate you guys jumping in to the community brews, and it'll be the similar setup tomorrow morning. I think we actually have a Wellness Wednesday. So we'll have I think Kate Essex from OKH is leading tomorrow morning, but we'll do that each day just as a form of caretaking for our team. We'll also continue the Community Brew Live conversation and really taking some time to reflect on the year, taking some time to reflect on this NTI process and the implications of NTI on our work moving forward. And also think about what it looks like to continue this conversation about what we want to see from students from Project Backpack and these other things that we've been talking about. So really these days will provide us some space as a district to connect with people across the district and really think about this work that we want our kids to do. And then from 9 to 11, and really the middle part of the day is really local schools. We've been working with each of our principals and what that looks like for them and thinking about their priorities at the local school level. We know just like kids, we're not going to be able to plan for 5 or 6 hours sitting in front of the computer on the screen, that we're going to have to think about what that looks like for them. But that middle part of the day is really for the schools to think about their collaboration. And then at 2 o'clock, we want to kick off, and I'm going to talk about this a little bit more in a second, some book clubs this summer where people can come together and really think about the future of school, and it would be geared around a book, and we would study that as a team. So we want to invite you guys. We want to invite parents, community members, our team, our staff, students, if they would like to be a part of that. And I'm going to share a little bit more about book clubs in here in just a second, but we would kick those off at 2 o'clock each day of the Backpack Day planning. So that's a rough idea of what May 18th through the 22nd looks like for those Backpack Days as a district. So the next part that I want to touch base on is the Summer of Empowerment. So we began this conversation a few weeks ago and really thinking about, we know that school has been obviously drastically different the past few weeks, and we know that it's going to be really important that we provide space during the summer for kids and families if they want to continue to engage in learning in some capacity, to really think about that. And so it kind of challenged us two ways. One, for all of our schools to initiate some conversations with students over the last couple weeks. Think about, what does your summer look like? What are some goals you have? What do you want to accomplish? And then the other piece of that was providing some resources for students to really be able to, for students and families to be able to come together and create those moments. So what we've done is, if you go to our NTI experience, if you go to our NCS NTI Days website, and Carla, I think the logo there is a link if you want to click that. So if you go to this website, we've added something called Summer of Empowerment. So the book club, which I'll talk about in just a second, is a way to sign up. But if you go to the Empowerment Hub, if you'll click that, Carla. One of the things that Brooke and I have been working on with our backpack leaders in the district is really taking a lot of our NTI resources and compiling them. And so if you'll scroll down, it should be there, just scroll down. So you can see that we have had teachers from across our district, and they're continuing to do this, submit some different learning experiences that families would be able to do on their own. And so you can see they can be divided by school, it can be based on grade level, or it could also be based on a focus. So if you're a parent, you say, I want a literacy activity for my student, and I want them focused on, maybe I have a first grader, right? So I want a first grade literacy lesson that I might want to do with my kids. That's going to be here on this website. I think so far we've had about 15 to 20 of these generated. We're going to continue to add to this over the next week. But really, the goal of this is that it would just be a hub for parents and families that if they want to extend learning, they want to continue that conversation, it's an opportunity for them to do that. We've also listed, if you go back to the Summer of Empowerment link there at the top, we've also listed under other resources. You may just have to click the arrow beside of it. I'm sorry. Yeah, click the arrow beside other resources. So we have some current events. So there's a way Kelly Gallagher does an article of the week. So it'll be an opportunity for if you want to do that, you want to participate in that. It's really about reading and annotating. We compiled. Found a website where there's like 600 free online courses that people could participate in. And then we also have there something our librarians have been working on in our district. If you click that link, it's called The List. And essentially, this is a tool that they have been using for our teachers for classroom libraries. But if you go to the table of contents, you can see all of this is essentially their recommendations for teachers to start with book recommendations. So if you want to get on Amazon and order books, our librarians are using this with teachers for classroom libraries, but these are all of the different types of awards and books that our librarians are recommending to teachers, that if you are a parent, you want to go get one, that exists as well. So Summer of Empowerment is really just a way to try to compile some resources for our team, or our families, excuse me, to continue to engage in the learning conversation. So that's that piece. Carla, if you go back to the main slide deck there. Go to the next slide, please. So our final thing is our book clubs, and we knew reading and continue to think about how we create shared language across our district is really important. And so we're excited to kick off those book clubs during Backpack Days. We would invite you guys to be a part of those as well. We've actually added some more books besides the ones you see here, but these books have been really important to us as we think about literacy conversations. We think about Project Backpack. We think about the implications of this work on grading. We think about the power of place and what it really means to be community-centered schools. We knew that was going to be really important. So our plan for our book clubs, if you go to the next slide, Carla, is each book club has a leader, and we want to engage people in that. And so our plan is currently to have something set up like a weekly virtual chat, and then also thinking about, could we use Facebook or some other mechanisms to connect people around this book or this topic. And so it will really be a way for us to share learning across our district and continue the conversations that we started this year through online book clubs over the course of this summer. So just want to keep you guys in the loop about some things that are going on to continue to engage our families, our teachers, our leaders, and our students in the work ahead. Wes, I don't know if you want to add anything to it. Mr. Damon, you have a question?
Well, no, I just wanted to say I appreciate all the hard work that you've been putting in as well, Chase. I know not only with this, but also with working with both of the high school principals on the student graduation options. You joining the Google Meet call that I had with the 22 districts that I work with the other day, it generates some good conversations for a couple days after that. Some of them commenting they wish that their high school had taken a similar approach of inviting seniors in on that conversation early on. So I appreciate all that work on that. And also, just as a side note, make sure to give a virtual high five to all those eighth graders that you're going to be watching parade there from Okotoks Middle School here shortly. Okay.
Somehow I got roped into being like the grand marshal, so I have to like lead them around the path here at the Nelson County High School in OKH. So lined up, got quite a few lined up.
I would say you were voluntold by Dr. Golf.
Perhaps, yeah.
All right, next up is tentative budget. Are we ready to move on?
All right. Good evening, everybody. So I will be presenting to you the tentative budget this evening, and just to draw back to a reminder of what we've been looking at over the last several months. The budgeting process is really broken up into three broad phases, and that's the draft budget, the tentative budget, and the working budget. And the presentation of the tentative budget is just that final portion of the tentative budget phase that's been built on by the SBDM allocations and the salary schedules and job descriptions that have been approved. And now with the tentative budget, which we'll be asking for approval at the May board meeting, that will provide us the foundation as we move into the working budget phase. So on the next slide, I just gave you a broad overview of what we expect to achieve out of each of the phases. And I'm not going to read it all for you. The policy is there as to why we have to do it, but really understanding what we're trying to achieve through each of these portions. In the draft budget, it's really the start of the budgeting conversation and allows us to review and clarify, but we have very little information, so it's really more of a discussion phase. During the tentative budget, we still don't have end of the year data. We don't have assessment information, but we are close enough to the end of the year at that point. And normally we have a budget at that point from the state, which allows us to make a really good estimated guess on what we expect for our revenues and our expenses to be. And so it is still tentative though. By the time we get to the working budget, we do have assessment information. We do have end of the year data. And so that's why that budget is also called a close estimate budget, because it's at that point where we have enough information to get a really good picture of what the year is going to hold for us. So of course, this is the tentative budget. It's a close guesstimate, but it is a guess because there's still information that we don't have. So Carla's going to move to slide 6 for us. And I am going to talk through priorities for for myself and the things that I am constantly focused on in all of the work that I'm doing. My 3 priorities are empowered communication, annual financial planning, and student-centered stewardship. And I really wanted to talk through the annual financial planning, the student-centered stewardship. For annual financial planning, we understand that everything we do related to finance is built into this cycle in some way. It affects the cycle in some way. And so we've kind of been showing that to you over the past several months. And that's why we keep coming back to it, because everything's tied to something else. Nothing stands alone. Everything has an effect on something. But even though we do it as part of this cycle, the student-centered stewardship is really what we're looking at, because everything we do is drawn back to students. Every decision we make, every reallocation, every change is focused on ensuring that we provide the best possible experiences for the students of Nelson County, and that we're regularly trying to align those resources with district priorities to make sure students' needs are recognized and met. So I just wanted to kind of show you the things that I'm focused on as I work through these cycles before we move forward. And then I believe Mr. Bradley would like to review this.
Yeah. I think we recognize too that over the past 2 years, we've continued to talk about emergent emergent trends, not just in budgeting, but in staffing and other realities. And I think the COVID-19 crisis across the globe continues to show that emergent forces will impact the future. And I think that our reality is over the next year, we can all assume that there'll be unpredictable, not only unpredictable financial forces that impact our state government and local government, but also there'll be some emergent trends in learning and the nature of learning that will impact how we allocate resources, not just this year, but in the coming years. And this is just a reminder as we look towards the future. We made significant reallocation last year. This year looks relatively similar. This current budget looks relatively similar to that. Those commitments we made as a board last year to our schools are very much the same this year in the budget. I think as we look towards 2021, 2022, I think it's going to probably challenge us to think about some of these opportunities that we're seeing in emergent learning, and also some of the tensions we face across our state of Kentucky in terms of SEEK funding and otherwise. So I just wanted to come back to that as we think about the emergent nature of budgets and the resource allocation process.
So this slide is something that you've seen in the past, and I wanted to draw your attention to it again, but I really want you to focus on this 5 years that I've got circled here. From fiscal year 2017 to fiscal year 2021, which is what we're going into, you'll see that we've had a drop of almost $3.5 million in SEEK funding. And when I looked back at the reasoning, 80% of that is just because our assessments have increased, and that SEEK base, that base per student amount, has increased less than $20 per student in that 5-year period. So a drastic reduction in SEEK funding. Now, we've had an increase in our local tax revenue as the local revenues have had to compensate for those losses. But even 20% of that has had to go into our building fund based on those 3 nickels that we have. And so we've really had no revenue growth in 5 years in our general fund. And I just think that's important to recognize. Next slide, please, Carla. So here I've brought you back to the information we provided you in the draft budget about the things that we know and the things that we expect and the things that we don't know. And what I found as I was reviewing that is everything changed. We, of course, could not have expected what happened with the legislative session. We couldn't have expected with what's happening in the economy. And so everything, even the things that we knew, we no longer know. And so I do want to point out a couple things. Of course, we really expected the increased SEEK funding this year. It's been the topic for the last year. It was in every budget. And then, of course, the budget ended up passing and there was no increase to the SEEK funding base. So no increase. One positive note was that CRS rates, they froze them for us for the coming year, which was helpful because we did expect that increase that's been happening at 12% every year until we reach full funding. And so that is helpful, but they haven't told us if that means a 24% increase the following year or if it'll go back to 12%. We do expect that tax collection rates are going to be lower than normal because of economic strains. So that's something that we expect. And we don't know at this point how shortfalls are going to be handled at the state level. We do expect them, but we don't know to what extent that's going to affect school districts at this time. It's just information that we just don't have at this point. Next slide, please, Carla. Okay, so before you can understand going into a budget, I thought it was important to look at end of year projections. So based on the revenues that we are expecting for fiscal year 2020, we expect to end just below 32.5 million. With expenses at 32.2 million. We will have a shortfall in our childcare funds because we've not been able to have childcare open. And so we will have to cover that as well. So in the end, we will basically carry forward the same amount in fiscal year 2020 as we did in 2019, or a very similar amount. So as we move into fiscal year 2021, and we've projected out what we expect the revenues to be based on the information we currently have from the state on the SEEK budget, as well as the information we currently have from our PBA on expected assessments. And basically expecting just over $32 million in new revenues. And so just to kind of summarize what we're expecting the revenues to pretty much stay the same. There won't be any drastic changes in revenues from 2021 to 2020. We understand that, as in the past, that that is a transition from state funding to local funding, that local funds have to increase in order to compensate for the loss in state funding. We are in a good place right now. We have a sufficient, we're in a good standing financially where we can continue to maintain the programs and the priorities that have been set previously. And we are presenting a balanced budget, assuming that all revenues come in the way they are anticipated to be. However, we also understand that we cannot anticipate all the different things that could happen with this budget year. And until those things are known, we don't know how exactly we'll respond to those, but we do know that we'll be constantly watching and we'll be flexible. And we understand that we may have to reallocate throughout the year as necessary as those things happen and occur. So on the next couple slides, and I'm not going to go into too much detail, I've broken it down into various aspects of the budget to show you how much is allocated for Section 4, which is our certified school staff, and Section 5, down through the academy and the early learning center and the other school allocations. And then on the next slide is more of the district-wide services that include some of the special education services that we provide district-wide, like school psychologists and community work-based transition, as well as things like transportations and facilities and technology. And so, and I've also provided a breakdown of the number of positions that are funded through each of those things, just so that you can see how many people we're talking about in this district. And we will continue with the same contingency budget that we had in fiscal year 2020. That's the expectation. Now, of course, as always, I will have the Munis report ready for you to review in the next week or so. It'll be quite a few pages, and I'm happy, as always, to walk you through it if you would like me to do so. But that is the tentative budget in a summarized format for you.
This is information only tonight. We will approve the tentative budget on the 19th.
All right. Look forward to that.
So the next conversation, really since January, we've been in conversation together about the opportunity to begin negotiating and potentially working towards an offer for attractive land that is next to Nelson County High School and Okeechobee Hill Middle School. We've had a lot of good conversation about this, not only as a board team, but also with the local property owner. And at this time, really, this is part of our conversation with Mr. McKay is in order to move forward, we essentially need to authorize approval for me to sign a formal offer that would be $1.4 million for the 92.99 acre tract of land located directly behind the property, currently owned by the Nelson County Schools, and to also authorize me, Superintendent Bradley, to negotiate with the sellers of the tract the other terms of the sale. Entering into written agreements is necessary to carry the purchase. So this is really in order to allow you as a board to then discuss the final contract. This would allow me to enter into that conversation. So again, this is a conversation that at this time has been going on really as a board team since January. We've talked quite a bit about the opportunities that exist with this property. I think we recognize it is truly unique to the Nelson County Schools in its location. I think we also recognize that over the course of the next 10 years, we expect there to be real opportunity to potentially expand some of the Kentucky Home, Area Technology Center, Nelson County campuses in collaboration with this property. And I think our conversation has been healthy about those opportunities. So any discussion about this or questions you may have?
I agree. We've had a lot of discussion thus far. I don't know how much detail we need to go into at this working session in and above what's been discussed already. I think with this particular requirement to authorize you, I mean, it's fairly straightforward. This amount and the factors that are within this proposal has been discussed in executive session 2 or 3 times. If anyone else has any concerns, please air them as you feel appropriate. Otherwise, love to entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Okay, Diane Brady has made a motion to authorize Superintendent Bradley to sign a formal letter of 1.4 million for 92.99 acres tract of land located directly behind the property currently owned by the Nelson County Schools, to authorize Superintendent Bradley to negotiate with the sellers of that tract and the other terms out of the sale, entering into written agreements as necessary to carry the purchase forward. And Diane Berry seconds. All in favor?
Do you need to go with each one of us?
Yeah, I think we did that last time. Mr. Jackie, I call for your vote respectively.
Aye.
Ms. Berry?
Aye.
Ms. McGuire Dye, please.
Agree. Aye.
And Ms. Breeding, please.
Aye.
Aye as well. The ayes have it. Motion carries. Section 3D. Ms. Owens, please.
Yes, so this documentation is the BG1, which is just the official funding document that we have to provide to the state to show how we're going to fund this land if the agreement is made. And it just shows that the funding will be unrestricted funds. And I need approval for that in order to be able to submit all of the paperwork to the state for approval of the acquisition of the land if the final contract is approved.
Gotcha. I need a motion to approve BG1 number 20-206 for expansion of the OKHMS and Nelson County High School campus.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Ms. Snyder.
I heard a motion or several motions. We will write it down. However,
I'll defer to Ms. Snyder.
Well, thank you.
Ms. Dye motions and second by Mr. Jackie. Mr. Jackie, your vote.
Aye.
Mr. McGuire Dye, please.
Aye.
Ms. Berry, please.
Aye.
Ms. Breeding, please.
Aye.
Aye as well. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. Appreciate it. Section 4A, MOA with the University of Kentucky. Ms. Clark, please.
Hello, how are you all tonight? So we are always looking for opportunities to increase engagement with our students and create different learning experiences. I had a representative from the University of Kentucky reach out and ask if we would be interested in hosting interns through our speech language pathology program. We've had some great success with that. I am so excited to say that last year we had an intern who was at Bloomfoot Elementary with one of our speech pathologists, and we were actually able to hire them this year onto our staff. So this is an opportunity for us to really help
with the university as well to help build our staff and get people involved within Nelson County Schools. So there's not really a motion for tonight. It will probably go into the consent agenda for the board meeting, but I just wanted to bring this to your attention that we would like to enter into an agreement with University of Kentucky to host students in the speech language pathologist program.
Thanks, Tiffany.
Yes, thank you. Look forward to reading through that and talking about that in our regular session. 4B ATC transition to local ownership.
Good evening, guys. A few weeks ago at our last board meeting, I visited with you about House Bill 352, which actually is giving local school districts the opportunity to explore local ownership of area technology centers, and with that, receiving funding, full funding first year and 75% of the funding second year and beyond. So I just wanted to take a few minutes to update you where we are with that process. So Carla, if you'll hit the next slide. As we think about moving toward this local ownership, just really reminding you of the overall goals of our regional collaboration, especially when we think about our partnering districts, Bardstown, City Schools, and LaRue, and just with the idea that we want to expand pathways that align to high demand areas, increasing dual credit opportunities, and focusing on work-based learning. So the whole intent is to work collaboratively so we can expand these opportunities for our students and our region. The next slide is a timeline. It's just a broad timeline to kind of update you where we are in the process. So I believe the budget bill passed on April 15th. So we visited with you a couple of weeks later at the board meeting. Letting you know that the past couple of weeks, Mr. Bradley has been engaged with our with the superintendents from our partnering districts to create an interlocal agreement that will outline what access looks like for all three districts, but also with the idea of knowing that Nelson County Schools will be the managing authority of the school. So our hope is that we can come to you during our June board meeting and approve the interlocal agreement among our districts, and then also work toward an official request with the Kentucky Department of Education requesting ownership of the center. And if that timeline works, July, Nelson County Schools could possibly be looking at the opportunity to manage the area tech center. So with that, a lot of things have happened the past couple of weeks to support the staff during this transition. So if you'll hit the next one, Carla. Some things that have happened. Robin Hanloser met with all of the ATC staff last week. She had individual meetings just to walk through questions and things that they're exploring as they think about this transition. Mr. Bradley also met with the staff a couple of weeks ago. When we visited with you at the last board meeting, we approved some MOA positions. I believe they were health science positions and also the principal positions. So those positions are posted. We'll be interviewing on Friday for the health science positions and in the next couple of weeks with the principal positions. And also knowing that we are collaborating weekly with the Kentucky Department of Education, asking questions about this transition. So we're just continually working with them to think about what this process will look like. So we just wanted to spend some time with you tonight to give you an overview of where we are in this process.
Excellent. Thanks for the update. Super exciting future for that section. Thanks, Laura.
Thanks.
Section 4C, Academy transition process.
Well, hello, everybody. Happy Tuesday. I wanted to start as we kind of talk about this transition process with some celebrations on how our year kind of went. So you can see in the bottom left-hand part of your screen is really where we started. And we started to explore this idea of reframing a conversation. so that students would start to embrace their story as their gift and start to really delve into what that meant to be an empowered member of their community. And you can see as you kind of rotate around clockwise some of the ways that we did that through the Pride Games and those rituals and traditions. That was really cool to experience and talk with folks like Tyler and Kirk McElroy and learn that that was the first time that kids had felt empowered to come out and to be a part of those events. So that was great to see them there. And then our Feast of Thanks and this conversation that we started with Project Backpack, which was really asking students, what does it mean to be a part of our community and what does it mean to learn? Which leads us to this next slide, which is as we celebrate 30 graduates from the Academy in this calendar year, which is, I think, a testament to the work that the team has done there. I wanted to highlight the one on the bottom left. If you don't know Ethan works at Boone's, or he did at Press Time. He was talking about transitioning to construction because that's where his real passion was, but he works at Boone's. And when he graduated, he stood in the lobby at the Academy and said, 4 months ago, I was going to drop out. And we looked at each other and I said, Ethan, 4 months ago, I thought you were going to drop out. And I said, what was the difference that made you continue and want to do that? He said, something happened this year that I felt cared about. And I felt like somebody believed in me. And I thought that was a really powerful thing. Ethan is pretty much living on his own. His brother Alex will graduate tonight as well. So I just want to celebrate, really, as we talk about this transition process, really the work that kids are doing to reimagine their stories. And then we'll kind of, as we move on to the next slide, you can see what our transition process looks like currently. And as we move into next year, we start with this referral and then an initial caretaking visit by our team, which is a partnership between Astra Behavioral Health. So one of our therapists and then one of our staff folk will go out and visit the comprehensive schools to do a screener and learn more about the students. We'll meet as a committee, as we've continued to do, to review all of that data, connect with our families to kind of let them know what the next steps are and what welcoming entails. And then we have a pretty substantial welcoming process as we bring students in. And you can see kind of what that timeline looks like. And it roughly takes, it really sort of depends on if it's in the middle of the year or if it's in the summer. Takes a couple weeks as we transition because we want to be really smart and really careful and really caring about transitioning students to and from their home schools. And then, so to answer the question of what does it look like to go back to a home school is on the next slide. And you can see we reach out to our home schools, connect back with our families to let them know, hey, this is what's happened. We're really excited for this experience. We've reached out to the homeschool and worked on a process. We share a document with our homeschools that details all of the supports that students are doing for their plans, and then our homeschools agree that they're going to work to implement those at their own homeschools. And then we work towards this graduated transitioning where we don't just cut and move them right into enrollment, but we do it a very thoughtful way, starting with a day. Sometimes, depending, we're lucky with OKH in Nelson County, we can do it even a period, so we can stretch out the transitions out. But it's a small increment, beginning on Fridays to begin to normalize the routine, and then within 5 to 6 weeks, we expect to see them fully transitioned back to their home school. And then as you pop over to the next slide, you can see kind of a brief. It's a lot of fun words there, but you can see just a brief overview of kind of what the diagnostic criteria look like as we work with Astra. And then I think the most exciting part is on this next slide, which is the student profile of success. So we've got the 4 areas of success. We have academic success, obviously there, making sure that they're passing and recovering deficiencies and credits if they're in high school, or they're passing. Work-based learning, meeting those daily assignments, behavioral success through the point sheet, through the goals that they've set themselves, and then some therapeutic goals. for that process. So that's just a brief snapshot of kind of what our students do to come to us, how we work the process to get them to us, and then how we work the process to return them back.
Thank you, Mr. Webster.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Does,
Rob.
Ms. McCoy have, she's listed on here as well. Is there additional information?
It's just it was just Mr. Webster there.
Okay. Gotcha. Thank you again. Mr. Bradley, would you like to sum up anything else before we adjourn?
Oh, well, just outside the office here, there's a little parade going on. If you can see the Kentucky Home Reverse Parade we got going on. Just a little live action there. No, I think over the next week, we'll have a lot of communication going out with families around this end of the year transition. I think too, we'll be investing more resources. It's ironic. It takes a pandemic to allow us to recognize how important Summer of Empowerment can be. And I think this is going to allow us to really think about what does summer supports look like for those families that are seeking it out, and how can we really engage students and families in continued opportunities to extend not just learning, but extend community, whether that be through shared readings and book clubs or other opportunities. So we look forward to updating you on May 19th with continued plans for graduation. And, I just want to reiterate, one of the reasons that we felt like it was important not to rush graduation is we've had about 80 years to plan traditional graduations. Those are still difficult to pull off. We've had 0 years to plan social distance graduations, and we want to make sure that we're thoughtful, that we can honor the nature of it, the seriousness of the event, while also allowing for some authentic opportunities at both schools to embed rituals and traditions into those ceremonies that are going to be important to the students and families. So that's one reason why I think it's important that we do that in June. So that's all I have for this conversation. And again, we're looking forward to seeing you guys May 19th for continued work around tentative budget and other items.
Thank you, Mr. Bradley. Appreciate the additional clarity and insight as to thought process going into maybe not a hasty decision for our most sacred ceremonies. With that being said, I would love to entertain a motion to adjourn the session of the Nesson County Board of Education.
Motion.
Jackie motions. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Berry.
Yes.
Ms. Jackie, your vote, please.
Aye.
Ms. Berry, please.
Aye.
Ms. Breeden, please.
Aye.
And Ms. McGuire.
Aye.
Aye, she said. I as well. The motion carries. Thank you so much, everyone, for all your work. I feel much more informed on several issues. Look forward to seeing you guys in a couple of weeks.
Okay, take care, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Good night.
Good night.